When in Rome, do as the Romans do. When you are visiting a new place, you should try to act as the local people do. Here are some tips.
In England. In England, it's customary to say please, thank you, excuse me, and sorry. It's polite to say excuse me if someone is blocking your way, and sorry if you accidentally bump into someone. And remember to stand in line, or as the British say, queue up, and wait your turn patiently. It's a good idea to talk about the weather, a favorite topic of conversation with the British.
In Mediterranean countries. Eating dinner late is a common custom in Mediterranean countries, such as Italy, Greece, and Spain. No one goes out for a meal before 9 p.m., and most restaurants stay open past midnight. It is also common for people in these countries to take an afternoon break. Many stores close for 3 hours in the afternoon, allowing workers to eat with their family, rest, and return to work relaxed.
In Japan. In Japan, be prepared to exchange personal or business cards. When a person gives you a card, don't put it in your pocket right away. The person expects you to read it and even comment on it. It is impolite not to do so.
In Asian countries. In many Asian countries, people eat with chopsticks. It's not polite to play with chopsticks or to cut and spear food with them. It's rude to leave them standing up in a bowl of rice. When not using your chopsticks, place them on the chopsticks holder. If you can't manage to eat with them, it's advisable to ask for a spoon or a fork.
In Mexico. In Mexico, all university graduates have a title, and they usually expect you to use it. Don't forget to call a university graduate, such as a lawyer or an engineer, licenciado.
In India. Removing shoes before entering a home is customary in India. In fact, it is common practice in many parts of the world. Try not to spread dust and mud in the house and on the carpets of your host.
In the United States and China. In the United States, remember to make sure you tip porters, taxi drivers, and waiters. Waiters expect to get a tip that is 15% of the cost of your meal. China is one of those wonderful countries where tipping is not practiced, and almost no one asks for tips.
In Germany. Being punctual is important to Germans. For business meetings, it is a good idea to arrive a few minutes early. Hosts also expect their guests to be on time. Being late or rushing makes a bad impression.
What should I remember to do in England?
Always remember to stand in line.
Is it polite to cut your food with chopsticks in Japan?
No, it isn't.
B. It's advisable to have a snack before dinner in Spain.
Why?
Because people have dinner very late, and restaurants do not generally open until after 9 p.m.
There are certain things that you should be aware of when you travel to a foreign country. Patterns of behavior that are acceptable in your country may actually be insulting to people in other cultures. Body language also varies. Gestures that mean one thing in your culture may not be understood or may have a different meaning in another culture. If you're going to travel to the U.S. as a tourist, as a student, or on business, it's advisable to observe the following. Americans usually shake hands when they first meet people and business acquaintances. They greet others by making eye contact and smiling, and it is also common to introduce people using first names. In general, they like to keep their distance and are uncomfortable if someone moves in really close. The acceptable distance is approximately 40 centimeters, about an arm's length. Americans are very punctual and are not tolerant of lateness for social occasions, and especially for business meetings. Being late for a meeting or an appointment is considered a sign of disrespect. Most business entertainment takes place in restaurants. It is not common for Americans to bring business into their homes. When they become friends, they might invite colleagues for a meal to their house. Guests are not expected to bring gifts, but a small token, such as chocolates or flowers, is usually well received.
It's polite to shake hands. It's advisable to study the customs. It's impolite to stare at someone. It's common to exchange business cards.
So, what's it like living and working in China?
Well, to be honest, in today's globalized world, there isn't really all that much difference anymore, especially in big cities like Shanghai, where I'm based. There's a lot of traffic, crowded subways and buses, tall skyscrapers, and modern shopping malls just like in other large cities around the world.
Have any differences struck you?
Well, the food is very different, and eating with chopsticks was tricky at first, especially rice and noodles. But I've got the hang of it.
What about the language?
Most of the people I work with speak English well. I'm still learning Chinese to handle everyday situations.
Is there anything else you're not used to yet?
No, I've adjusted to the way of life. However, there's still one thing that's kind of weird to me. In China, the family name comes before the first name, and millions of people have the same surname. For example, Wang, Li, Zhang, Chen, and so on are the most common.
No kidding.
Yeah. At work, when I called out Zhao, 3 colleagues used to answer me, but I managed to solve the problem.
What did you do?
Your ending. What do you think Edgar answers?
1. I found out the first name of each one. 2. Together we came up with a Western name for each: John, George, and Joe. 3. I left my workstation and went and talked to each one. A fish out of water. Almost everyone who studies, lives, or works abroad experiences some degree of culture shock. This period of cultural adjustment involves everything from getting used to the food and language to smaller things like learning how to use the telephone. No matter how patient and flexible you are, adjusting to a new culture can sometimes be difficult and frustrating. Some people get depressed and very homesick. But don't panic. These are all totally normal reactions, and you are not alone. The term culture shock was first used by writer Calvero Oberg in 1954. He found that all human beings experience the same feelings when they travel to or live in a different country or culture. Oberg identified 5 distinct stages of culture shock. 1. The adjustment phase. This period can last 6 months or longer. The newcomer is excited about being in a new place and experiencing a new lifestyle. Some problems may occur, but the person usually tends to accept them as part of the adjustment to another country and novelty of being in a new place. People are generally helpful to the newcomer, and that person feels welcome. 2. Emptiness or rejection phase. The newcomer has to deal with the usual problems of accommodation, transportation, shopping, not finding your favorite foods, and very often, not being able to communicate fluently in the local language. The local people may not understand why the newcomer is making such a big deal over what they see as a small problem. At this point, the newcomer starts to complain about and maybe even reject the new country. 3. The Conformist Phase. Gaining some understanding of the new culture, its ideals, and its values brings a new feeling of pleasure. The crisis is over when the newcomer learns to understand the cultural differences, but hasn't completely adjusted to the new culture. 4. Assimilation Phase, or complete adjustment. In this phase, the person accepts the food, the habits, and the customs of the new country, and may even find some things better than things back home. The newcomer becomes completely adjusted and feels comfortable in the new place. On returning home, the traveler will miss the new friends and the country and will cherish the memories forever. 5. Reverse culture shock. This is when the person comes back to the home country. The returnee may have been away from home for a long time and gets a re-entry shock. Many things have changed, and it will take a while to get used to home again.